Hey everyone, it's Aspen Connor. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you've been here for a while, I just wanted to say thank you. I know that I've not posted a lot of things that are going on with me for a while. I know that I haven't posted a lot about Delphi in a while. And I am reading off of a script because I was nervous to do this video because it's been a while since I've posted any Delphi content. But I've had a lot going on. I've had a lot of exciting things happening, much of which I hope to share with you very soon in the future. But in the meanwhile, I wanted to come on today and I wanted to mark this occasion because I felt like it's a very important occasion. It's a very important day. If you've followed or you've cared about the Delphi case at all over the years, today marks the 1 year anniversary of a very important event. And that event would be that on November 11th, 2024, Veterans Day, which, by the way, happy Veterans Day. Um, I, side note, got to know and have become very good friends with the leader of the VFW in the town of Delphi. And a funny thing that a lot of people don't know is on the day of the verdict, um, they normally shoot off a cannon brigade in celebration of Veterans Day. And because of the court proceedings that were going on last year in Delphi, they did them from a different location. And a lot of people were confused when they heard the cannons go off around 11 a.m. that morning. But um, it was routine and out of respect and in a way not to alarm people that were out there waiting for the verdict. They did it from a different location. But anyway, side note, today marks the 1 year anniversary of the conviction of Richard Allen. Richard Allen was found guilty 1 year ago today on November 11th, 2024, in the double homicide of 13-year-old Abigail Williams and 14-year-old Liberty German in Delphi, Indiana, for the brutal double homicide that those girls incurred while on a normal hike on a day off school on the Monon High Bridge Trail. As many of you know, like I said, I haven't posted a lot of Delphi content this year, much of which has been intentional. You know, I've followed what happened to Libby and Abby for years. And I attended several of the hearings before the trial, and then I went to Indiana. I believe it was 42 days I ended up spending between October and November of 2024 in Delphi or Indiana. And I attended the jury selection in Fort Wayne. I then attended every day with the exception of 1.5 days when I had an eye infection. But other than that, I attended the entire trial of Richard Allen. The trial itself was approximately 3 weeks long. And that experience is something that honestly has personally changed my life forever. Even after following the case for as long as I have, I will admit that I came into Indiana that October naive, bushy-eyed, and bright-tailed, and was not prepared for the events that were to follow. I was not prepared for the emotional weight and gravity that the trial would bring upon all of those that attended. And let me preface that by saying none of us matter. None of us have any, we chose to be there. It was in no way in comparison to what those families and everyone involved and that town had lived through for almost, well, now almost 9 years. Wow. Um, but my only intent on attending that trial was to be a seat in that courtroom and to show support to Libby and Abby and their families because of the experience that I had after going to the 3 day hearings in July of 2024 and seeing what it meant for those families to have people in the courtroom they could turn around at and know we're there to support them and we're there for the right reasons. It was important for me to take that time out of my life to attend the trial. Again, this is not about me, but it is the first time I've kind of sharing my personal experience throughout that. And I'm not going to go into a ton of detail and depth with all of it. Some of that's private. I wanted to say, though, prior to the trial, when I was on it to Crime and Shame, when I did my own content, when I've done anything, I have never publicly stated a POI. I never had someone that I thought was guilty. I never contested the arrest of the convicted. I never went into this to prove the guilt of the now convicted murderer. What I went for was to support the families, to show compassion, hopefully be a little bit of a voice of logic, and with no other intent other than to support them and to see firsthand the evidence and to make up my own mind as to whether Richard Allen was guilty or innocent. And as far as the outcome, it was irregardless to me. What I wanted was those families to have some answers. And what I wanted was for the right person to be convicted for the murders of Libby and Abby. I know that over the years, this has become a very divided and turbulent community, especially online. The impact those two little girls and what happened to them, and subsequently the respect, the empathy, and the admiration I have grown to have for both the families of Libby and Abby, but also the community of Delphi. It's something I didn't expect. And it's probably one of the reasons that I've refrained from doing much content or stating much in regards to the Delphi case in the past several months. I went to that courtroom not only to support the families, but because I wanted to see every piece of evidence. I wanted to see every piece of witness testimony, and I wanted to make up my own mind. And I can say over the course of the nearly 3-week trial that I did come to a conclusion. Let me state for the record, I have never wanted anything more than, if it exists at all, there to be some kind of justice to come for Libby and Abby. Because what happened to them is unthinkable. It's unimaginable. It's despicable. And it's evil. That being said, I've never stated an opinion on Richard Allen's guilt or innocence prior to the trial. One way or another, in a way, it didn't matter to me who was responsible for this despicable act. What mattered to me was that those families got the answers, like I just said, and that someone be brought in front of a judge and a jury and to stand trial for the actions that they caused, and that it be the person that was responsible, not a patsy, not someone falsely accused, but the person that was on that bridge that made those girls go down the hill and that subsequently took their lives. This was a despicable act of cruelty, brought on by someone that was capable of ruining, with only their own selfish reasons, so much pain and devastation to so many innumerable people. I, over the course of the trial, like many, including a jury of 12 of his peers, personally witnessed the defendant. I watched the witness testimony. I saw the mountainous amounts, volumes of evidence, binders, if you will, of evidence. And it was at the discretion of that jury, and in my opinion, doesn't hold much weight. My opinion doesn't matter much, but what matters is what the jury thought. I did see firsthand the totality of that evidence that was presented by the prosecution and by the defense. And I came to the conclusion throughout the trial, and I've said it publicly now, that the second I saw them play the video of the first interrogation with Richard Allen and Mullins and Liggett, my gut, my hair on the back of my neck stood up. I knew without a doubt in my mind that what I was watching and that who I was witnessing was Bridge Guy. And that, even before all of the other evidence, had an impact on me. But then, even within his own account, over 60 times his own account, Richard Allen is guilty of murdering those 2 children. Cameras were not allowed in the courtroom, nor was any audio recording. A decision I personally still disagree with, but one that I respect because it was the court's discretion. And to be honest, that discretion holds way more weight than any opinion I may have. People will argue forever whether or not there should have been cameras in that courtroom. It is what it is at this point. I am, on one hand, sad because I feel like transparency is always the answer. I support cameras in courtrooms, at least in criminal trials. But I also support whatever decision the court makes and whatever decision the families of those victims feel appropriate. And if they were happy with the fact that there were no cameras in the courtroom, then I'm okay with it. The overall experience of attending that trial is not something that even cameras would have been able to capture, to be honest. And you know what? There's still aspects of that experience that I find traumatic, but again, in no way does that compare to what we who chose to be there experienced. It has no comparison to what Libby and Abby went through on February 13th, 2017, on a normal Monday, on a day off school. Well, they were doing what we hope all kids these days do. They went outside, they spent time in nature, and they did things that teenagers do. They lived their innocent, free lives, and they enjoyed time with their friends, and they had the last few moments of their carefree lives on that day. And they just did what they were supposed to be doing. They were kids being kids. That ordinary, uneventful, ultimately tragic day, and the events that transpired prior to this act were interrupted, and they were destroyed by a monster, and for no reason but for his own selfish reasons, who chose to rob those two little girls of ever having another experience like that, or even ever again getting to wake up another day on this planet. Because their lives were taken, and they weren't just taken, they were destroyed, they were robbed, they were humiliated without any regard to their future, to the people that loved them, and what I can only think is something that, although it's hard to put into words, I can only describe as the most disgustingly cowardly evil act a human being could ever take in this world. Richard Allen woke up on that Monday. He was off work that day. He got up, he drove to Peru, Indiana. He went to see his mother. Now, you know what? He couldn't be bothered with the whole family, so he didn't go to lunch that day. Instead, he went home. And then before leaving the house that day, for whatever reason, one of which may never know, he put a box cutter, what we know now, or a knife, a sharp object, in his pocket. He disguised himself. He brought his gun, a Sig Sauer to be exact. He then decided to get into the vehicle. He Fridge Guy starter pack. Left his mother's. At what point he decided to pick up a 6-pack of beer, because you know what? It's his day off. It's a Monday. It's a beautiful, warm day in Indiana. He had that box cutter and gun with him. He downed 3 of those beers by his own account. Did he intend on killing 2 children that day? We don't know. But either way, he had the tools needed if he wanted to. Did he finish one of those beers in the car on his way to the Monon High Bridge Trail that day? I don't know. But we do know that he went to the High Bridge that day. We know that he went to the trails often, so often that he had a photo album full of pictures from the trails. Somewhere he frequented often. Did he smoke a few cigarettes once he got out there? Did he finish one of those beers in the parking lot? Or I'm sorry, the old CPS building? Regardless of those facts, the ones that follow are what matters. At approximately 2:13 p.m., Libby and Abby were on the south end of the bridge, and a guy that they spotted started following them, coming from the north end of the bridge and coming directly towards them. Had they encountered the man prior to this? We don't know. Had he passed them on the trail? We don't know. But what we do know is that something about this man approaching them on the bridge, at that point, the bridge, when the girls were on it, they had one way out. If you're familiar with the area, you know that the north end of the bridge is, in which all accounts can be considered freedom. And sadly, he was blocking that path. So the only escape they had was the south end of the bridge, which is not an escape. It's the end of the trail. Like anyone in that circumstance, they didn't know what to do. They could tell something was off, but who could imagine? Even if this guy was weird and creepy, your mind doesn't go to the fact that he's about to take your life. But guess what? This evil monster was about to murder you and your best friend. And so something in that amazing little girl's gut made her, and I mean Libby, pull out her phone, turn on her camera, and hit record. That simple act, well, it did not change the outcome of what happened to them that day. It did create, and it holds, the most valuable and important piece of evidence that eventually helped lead to the capture of that evil piece of shit that killed them. We will never most likely know exactly what transpired or what made Richard Allen take the lives of those girls, even now a year later. I question it all the time. I question the intent behind the motive and what made him make that horrendous decision that day. We'll never, ever likely know. Why? I guess it doesn't matter as much at the end of the day. He did what he did, and the results will always be what the results were. Libby and Abby will forever be 13 and 14 years old. They never got to go to high school. They never got to go to prom. They never got to graduate. They never got to go to college. They never got to have a career. They never got to get married. And they will never have the experience of what it's like to be an adult. They will never have had children. And this is all because one small, little, cowardly, evil, tiny man chose to rob them of all of it, even one more single momentary second of their lives. The few videos that I did during the trial, I made the comment that I wasn't sure if I believed in justice. And I'll be honest, at the time, my injustice represented the beginning and the ending of something, a right and a wrong, if you will. And no, I don't believe that a conviction rights any wrong. But what I do now understand, and I believe in, and I define justice by now, is what I've seen firsthand because of this case. The uncertainty and the unanswered questions of what happened to your loved one or what happened to you, the question mark that's followed by silence, by nothing but emptiness. However, the arrest and the ultimate conviction of the person responsible can help fill in those pages. And although it does not bring closure, it does provide some answers to those questions. The answer is critical in any attempt to begin to even take the next step, or to be able to close a chapter so that you can even begin to see what that next chapter or that next page looks like. That next step can never take place while you're still dangling in the void of eternity. Like I said, nothing brings those girls back. Nothing will ever take away the 24 hours of pain that their loved ones go through every single day. But at least it will allow that they close one chapter of their grief and they look forward to the next chapter of that process and they see what it looks like. And with any hope, they're able to take that first step towards healing and moving into a space where they can figure out what their new normal is and what their new life looks like. I've now witnessed what that looks like for some of these family members, and don't get me wrong, grief is not linear. I promise you there's no guarantee you'll be fine one day, and the next day you won't be able to get out of bed. You won't be able to conjure up that smile. But for the most part, I believe it allows people to access a part of themselves that they haven't been able to until that justice occurs. And for a lot of purposes, actually to be present in different parts of their life that they were incapable of being prior to that justice. They can focus in ways, and this is no way to disrespect their loved ones or in vain of what happened to them, but to move forward with their lives. Because let's be honest, the world doesn't stop just because you experience the unimaginable and you're going through hell. There will always be a before February 13th and an after February 13th for anyone that loved Libby and Abby. Like any of their relatives have told me, they owe it to their other family members now to love them as much as they did their murdered family member. They have other family that deserves just as much of them as she was given. And I've seen the sweat, the sleeplessness, the stress, the exhaustion, but the strength, the fortitude, and the insane amount of love and heart that they have poured into honoring Libby and Abby. And I mean their families. Every single day since those girls went missing, and how they have put all of that into honoring them and into the ballpark and refusing to let the world forget about those girls. Over the course of the last few years, especially, I've come to respect and admire those families in countless ways. I've grown very close to some of them. And that closeness is something that I treasure and I protect. And I don't express often publicly. Because it's personal and it's genuine. What I can say about those families, though, are they are incredible. They're genuine, they are true, they are honest, they are full of love, and they are impenetrable human beings who themselves have now experienced and been on the receiving end of despicable acts of cruelty and hate, but yet they get up every morning and they keep going. Because what other choice do they have? They continue to take the high road, and they keep their focus on honoring the lives of those girls and not on the trash that still lingers in the gutter with nothing but hate and nothing but cruelty where their hearts should lie. Even during the trial, those families did small things that people didn't see. Despite the magnitude and the weight of what they were experiencing and witnessing after sitting in that courtroom every day, they still had the humanity to show up in the middle of the night. And they brought people food, regardless of which side they were on. And that's a testament to the character and the types of people that they are. I was honored recently to accompany the families of Libby and Abby to Denver, Colorado, where they received an award for the Crime Fighter of the Year alongside Lieutenant Jerry Holman, who's the lead investigator of this case and is now someone I can say is an amazing human being and one of the most genuine, kind, and hard-working men I've ever encountered. And he's also pretty damn funny. Also, Prosecutor Nick McClellan, who I'll admit I didn't know much about until this trial, but is someone that blew me away every day with his professionalism, his knowledge, his preparedness, his character, and his commitment to those girls and their families, and who is now someone that I will always have the utmost respect for. In attendance in Colorado was also David Vito and Stephen Buckley, who are two of the investigators who worked on the case that I also now have an insane amount of respect for. And if you haven't checked out, they now have a podcast that's relatively new. You should check it out. They've started it called The Detectives, and I will link it in the description below. But they're incredible men, and I do have a funny story about going to dinner with them and Susan Hendricks and Lauren Matthias and Grayson and the Patties, and in which we all went to dinner, and I'll keep a lot of that private, but it did end with a lot of laughs and good times and a stop on the way home to buy Powerball tickets. But their podcast is called The Detectives. I highly recommend you, and I will link it in the description below. I've criticized past parts of this investigation that led to the arrest, but in this case I can now say with 100% certainty that every individual man, woman that worked on this case did so with commitment, determination in solving it. That relentless pursuit finally did pay off, and much of that is due to the thankless effort of a civilian volunteer who, although may stand small in stature, is a giant in nature, a force, and that would be Kathy Shanks, who I don't believe words can even adequately express the selflessness and humanity she has shown and continues to. I feel undeserving, but endlessly grateful for having been given the opportunity to get to know Libby and Abby's families, and for all of the people that have played a part in bringing their killer to justice. I may have never gotten to meet Libby and Abby, and it feels strange as a middle-aged individual to say this, but that 13-year-old girl and that 14-year-old girl They changed my life. Because of them and their bravery, because of their strength, the love, the character, and the integrity their families have shown, I'm a better person today than I was before I learned about Delphi. Jerry Holman said it first, and he said it best, but it's absolutely true. Those girls made me a better person. Something else I wanted to comment on is the town of Delphi. Before I began visiting the community, I had questions. I had suspicions and doubts, like many others. But what I can now say firsthand is that over the course of well over having spent now at least 150, 200 days in Delphi, is that this was a community that was broken. It was existing under the veil of sadness from what happened that day in 2017. But it's a community that's also strong-knit, it's decent, it's honest, it's full of good, hard-working, resilient, caring, and loving individuals that I have now had the pleasure to get to know many of, and who will forever be in my heart. Because as much as I never expected to grow so attached to the family members of Libby and Abby, I definitely never expected for the entire town of Delphi and that community to creep into my heart and my soul in the way that it has, and to hold such a prominent, important, and treasured place in my life. I hold that community and those people very, very close to myself, to the extent that I will forever be grateful and treasure that town and those people, and I will protect and care and love for them for the rest of my life. When I've done anything, I have never publicly stated a POI. I never had someone that I thought was guilty. I never contested the arrest of the convicted. I never went into this to prove the guilt of the now convicted murderer. What I went for was to support the families, to show compassion, hopefully be a little bit of a voice of logic, and with no other intent other than to support them and to see firsthand the evidence and to make up my own mind as to whether Richard Allen was guilty or innocent. And as far as the outcome, it was irregardless to me. What I wanted was those families to have some answers, and what I wanted was for the right person to be convicted for the murders of Libby and Abby. I know that over the years this has become a very divided and turbulent community, especially online. The impact those two little girls and what happened to them, and subsequently the respect, the empathy, and the admiration I have grown to have for both the families of Libby and Abby, but also the community of Delphi. It's something I didn't expect. And it's probably one of the reasons that I've refrained from doing much content or stating much in regards to the Delphi case in the past several months. I went to that courtroom not only to support the families, but because I wanted to see every piece of evidence. I wanted to see every piece of witness testimony, and I wanted to make up my own mind. And I can say over the course of the nearly 3-week trial that I did come to a conclusion. Let me state for the record, I have never wanted anything more than, if it exists at all, there to be some kind of justice to come for Libby and Abby. Because what happened to them is unthinkable. It's unimaginable. It's despicable. And it's evil. That being said, I've never stated an opinion on Richard Allen's guilt or innocence prior to the trial. One way or another, in a way, it didn't matter to me who was responsible for this despicable act. What mattered to me was that those families got the answers, like I just said, and that someone be brought in front of a judge and a jury and to stand trial for the actions that they caused, and that it be the person that was responsible, not a patsy, not someone falsely accused, but the person that was on that bridge that made those girls go down the hill and that subsequently took their lives. This was a despicable act of cruelty, brought on by someone that was capable of ruining, with only their own selfish reasons, so much pain and devastation to so many innumerable people. I, over the course of the trial, like many, including a jury of 12 of his peers, personally witnessed the defendant. I watched the witness testimony. I saw the mountainous amounts, volumes of evidence, binders, if you will, of evidence. And it was at the discretion of that jury, and in my opinion, doesn't hold much weight. My opinion doesn't matter much, but what matters is what the jury thought. I did see firsthand the totality of that evidence that was presented by the prosecution and by the defense. And I came to the conclusion throughout the trial, and I've said it publicly now, that the second I saw them play the video of the first interrogation with Richard Allen and Mullins and Liggett, my gut, my hair on the back of my neck stood up. I knew without a doubt in my mind that what I was watching and that who I was witnessing was Bridge Guy. And that, even before all of the other evidence, had an impact on me. But then, even within his own account, over 60 times his own account, Richard Allen is guilty of murdering. And look, I understand there's still many out there that question the outcome of that trial. and that even go as far as to believe that Richard Allen is innocent of the crime. No one should tell you, you have to believe one thing, or that you're wrong for feeling the way you do. We're all entitled to our own beliefs. And I think even the family members of Libby and Abby would agree that it's okay if you don't think the same as someone else. But what I do wish, and what I would love nothing more than is if the people that do feel differently could at least exist in a way and in a world that they don't harm or try to hurt Libby and Abby, their memories or their families. Look, I was a producer for a huge hit docuseries that aired on Hulu by ABC News. One that, by many people's opinions, expressed favoritism towards Richard Allen. It cost me friends, it cost me trust by people that I respect. And while I won't go into how far from the intentions that we had in that project, and how wrong the opinions of those people would be, I will say, to ignore the fact that there are people out there that believe very differently in this case, and in my opinion, it's just not good journalism to not at least acknowledge and represent that. What matters is that Richard Allen, and this is not in contest, this is not up for debate, was convicted, that a jury of 12 individuals unanimously decided that he was factually guilty of the murders. And again, it's beyond dispute. Yes, there is an appeal. Will it go anywhere? We will have to wait and see. In my opinion, it will not. And not to speak for the family members of Libby and Abby, but from the human beings that I've come to know them to be, I feel confident in saying every single one of them would sit through 100 appeals if they need to or had to. But again, in my opinion, I don't think that'll be necessary because I don't think this appeal is going anywhere. I'm not a lawyer, but I am pretty smart when it comes to certain things. And we'll have to just wait and see if I'm right. But I don't see any grounds for this appeal moving forward. What I do know, and without a doubt in the world, is that Libby and Abby will never be forgotten. They have left a mark on this world that will forever be honored and remembered. Their innocence and their bravery will stand throughout time as an example of how no matter what, good will always triumph evil. And for that hateful, albeit small group out there that wants to disparage their memory and that wants to hurt their families, as loud as they want to scream, and as loud as their voices may seem, they are a weak, they're small, they will never win, because this is not a contest. There's a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old girl that are gone. That pain will remain for every single day of the family members of those girls' lives for the rest of their lives. No one wins. No one loses. But we're all capable of having love and kindness. And those two things will always shine brighter than any amount of darkness and hate. So today, on the 1-year anniversary of the conviction of Richard Matthew Allen in Delphi, Indiana, I ask that you continue to pray for Libby and Abby, for their families, for their loved ones, for the town and the community of Delphi, and for all of those impacted by this case. Be kind. Show love. Show compassion. Show humanity to others. And if you care enough for the victims, I'm going to steal out a page out of Libby's book and ask that you give them a minute. And in that minute, say a prayer. Or send positive thoughts and love to those girls and all of those impacted by the events of February 13th, 2017. And for the events that have transpired since, say a prayer for those that have been wrongly accused. Say a prayer for all of those that have been affected by this tragic occurrence. Say a prayer for Kyle Fortson. Say a prayer for the convicted and his family if you want. Just take a minute. Send love. Send positivity out into the world. It's free. It costs nothing. I will leave you with some videos from that day. 1 year ago today, on Veterans Day, when we got a conviction after all of those years in the murder of Libby and Abby. Murders of Libby and Abby. I'm going to show a couple of videos from when the verdict was announced, when I got to hug the family. So that small little press briefing they gave just to announce that nothing would happen until the 20th of December. And then several pictures from that day that I've never shared, and some since that I find meaningful. But regardless, whether you agree or you disagree with me, I thank you for watching. #Justice for Libby and Abby. This is Aspen Connor. I hope everyone has a great day. And stay safe out there.
What number are you, Amy? Amy's 4. Amy's 4. I'm 3.
Yeah. This line has been in play. How many days has this line been in play now?
At least 5.
Oh.
Hey everyone, it's Aspen Connor. I'm sitting outside of the Carroll County Courthouse in Delphi, Indiana, where after 3 full days of deliberations, the jury has reached a guilty verdict in the case of Richard Allen and the double homicide of Abigail Williams and Libby German. They found him guilty on all 4 counts. Judge Gull has also issued that the gag order will remain in place until sentencing on December 20th. But there's a lot of emotions going around the courthouse this afternoon, and for most and biggest of all, I hope that this can bring some sort of end to a chapter for these families in this town. And even though it's not over, today was a good day.
Whatever you do,
Don't go in the grass. This is Truth Seeker over here going over the line.
Yep.
Who? I'm number 9?
Yep, you're number 9. Tamika's 10, Lindsay, Carrie and Joe, Nick Grayson, Bob.
Can't even keep the cops safe. Yes, sir.
Why are you guys so far?
How does he have anything to do with that?
Grab
Here's a video of the reaction outside of the courthouse when the guilty verdicts were first announced.
Guilty on all counts. I want to listen. Can I get a shot of that, Barbara?
Hey! Okay, give me a shot. Get out of the yard! Get out of the yard! Double murder. Kidnapping.
No, we're awesome. What I wanted.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. We got in there.
Again, let's all continue to pray for Libby and Abby, for their families, for the family of Richard Allen, and also for the town of Delphi, as this community begins to put the pieces back together that were shattered almost 8 years ago and can hopefully now begin to heal. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching. I appreciate it.
Puppies, I'm sorry. And I knew we would come to the day where we could say today is the day, and we reached it. But through this Facebook group, you were allowed to express your opinions and stuff. We all are, but ultimately our opinions don't matter. It was the 12 men and women in that box. And also, if any of you in the state of Indiana, I am pushing legislation, and they're working on a bill that would prohibit the release of photos of these two beautiful girls at the crime scene and pathologist report and the pathologist photos. So if you know any state legislators, please push for that. They're looking for a level 6 felony as a punishment because our baby girls should never be sold or put behind a paywall. So that's about. No,
what was your initial reaction when they came out and you found out?
I just I don't know why in my gut I felt we got to felony murder. I thought maybe the hang-up was on the murder, but I just sat out here and prayed this morning. People would say, you're sitting here by yourself with a sign for Abby and Libby, and I thought, it only takes one voice. And through that one voice we were able, I truly believe in the system. I think a lot of people owe the law enforcement.
Really, this is just going to be more of a scramble. There's nothing on the other.
Rachel.
So obviously everybody has already got the news of the verdict. With that being said, Judge Gull has not lifted the gag order. So we're not going to be able to make any type of public statement at this point. We'll be looking forward to having something scheduled a month from now at following sentencing. So with that, that's all that we're going to be able to say at this time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Over there.
probably the best thing to go for.
Ted says hello. Yeah, Bob did take her on the spot. Actually, she saved him the spot in for me. So, yeah. Everybody saying hi to you.
Hey everybody, how you doing? What time's it start? We think 9 o'clock. You feeling cold here? Hi Kate. Hey Queen.
We're taking footage. Oh, Anna Shakespeare was here taking footage, and then they said they'll be back in a few hours. So.
Apparently, because they don't like me, I don't like free speech. I don't know what I did to them, but I ruffled their feathers. That's for sure. We've got protesters out here who apparently love Richard Allen, hate Judge Gull. And apparently they think we don't like free speech.
What's up? Why do you think it's right for them cops to move everybody? When I'm not
I didn't say that was right.
I'm not protesting.
I didn't say it was right.
I ain't holding the sign.
Here's why I think they moved the sign. Because if the jury sees that,
I don't have a sign.
I'm just gonna stay away here.
I don't have a sign. I'm just standing down there. So I'm asking.
They tell me to move too. If I'd have been down there, I'd have moved.
Give you a reason. That's what I think it's wrong.
I was filming, but I guess I'm being interrupted now by this, so.
Either we're going to fight it right, we're going to go to jail, and then we're going to fight it that way. But we're still
When in Rome.
Going to
Or
influence the
we just
jury
back up and say, you know what?
dislike the judge or dislike the defendant.
That's kind of what I say to them.
One way or the
That's
other.
exactly
Just back up and say, you know,
fuck you, but I just don't understand why. It's all good. I don't know. Come on back. Hello. Both ways for what to do.
I know.
You know these cops are dirty.
I know.
I live around here too.